Look how relaxed she is. She had a spa day. I hope there aren't any Italians watching this. This is an abomination. Yum. Comfort food to the max.
That we've taken for granted, but feels like we're learning to be better.
Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Mindy and I have lost almost 120 pounds on Wegovy Mounjaro semaglutide compound, and I'm now back on Wegovy again. And this week I wanted to walk you guys through what a full day of eating looks like on my diet. I use kind of a flexible dieting, if it fits your macros approach. I make sure that I get about 30% of my caloric intake from protein, and other than that, I eat what I want. I just do it in moderation. First, we're gonna start with breakfast. I never used to be a very big breakfast person, but when I started this journey and I realized how little I was able to eat at any given time, I knew that I had to start incorporating breakfast. And once I started exercising in the mornings, breakfast was no longer optional. I had to eat in the mornings. A lot of the time I do very simple things like eggs, sausage, tots, fruit, and yogurt. But this last week I was going through Instagram and I found this recipe. The video was hilarious and we stan a comical creator around here. Definitely need to check out the video. I will link it down in the description as my recipe inspiration. And he said that when he was growing up, like in the cafeteria, they used to have this like breakfast pizza that had like a creamy sauce with sausage and cheese. I don't ever remember anything like that growing up. I grew up on the West Coast, and so I don't remember anything like that for breakfast. We usually had breakfast burritos or like just eggs and things like that. So when I saw this recipe, I was like, you know what? I can totally make a macro-friendly version of that recipe using my 2-ingredient pizza dough. I will leave the recipe down below, but if you want a printable version, you can most definitely get that from my Buy Me a Coffee site, and there's a link down in the description for that as well. Let's go back to yesterday when I went ahead and meal prepped this pizza and threw it together. So the first thing that we have to do with any pizza that I make is the 2-ingredient dough. Now it's called 2-ingredient dough because it normally uses self-rising flour. I don't buy self-rising flour. I make my own mixture that works the same way. I just want to clarify, this is not my recipe. 2-ingredient pizza dough has been around for a very, very long time. I just took the time to nail down the exact weights because I prefer to use weights when baking as to measurements because it just makes a more accurate and consistent end result. You're going to start with 230 grams of all-purpose flour, 1 3/4 teaspoons of baking powder, 3/4 plus 1/8 teaspoon of salt, and a scant 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. That's what's going to make up your self-rising flour component. If you want to buy self-rising flour, probably just like 240 grams of self-rising flour would work instead of making that combination. So once you get all of that mixed together, then you're going to add in 227 grams of non-fat plain Greek yogurt. Now I like using a high-walled bowl and a Danish whisk to bring this together. It's the quickest way that I've found to bring it together. The high-walled bowl really helps because you can get in there and stir it around really vigorously until it forms like a shaggy dough, and then you're just going to get your hands in there and press it all together until it comes into one cohesive mass. You're not really kneading it so much as just getting everything pressed together. I like to make this the day before, and then I put it in plastic wrap in the fridge because I'm going to be rolling this out into a rectangular shape. I'm helping myself out a little bit by folding the plastic wrap into a rectangular shape and then pressing the dough out into those corners. And then once I have it good and flat, I'm just going to throw that in the fridge overnight, and it actually helps to develop a little bit more flavor, but you can definitely roll this out and use it right away. All right, let's get this party started. Start by browning up some turkey sausage. That's the most obvious place to reduce some calories in this thing. I have had my pan preheating to get some color on this as quickly as possible. Well, that's a lovely noise. All right, I'm gonna let it sit here and get some color on it. I broke my sausage up quite a bit more than he did because personal preference, and we got some color on it here. I'm gonna turn the heat down a little bit and I'm gonna remove most of this sausage from the pan. I'm still gonna leave some because I want some in the gravy. Okay. And then we're going to plop in a couple tablespoons of light butter for calorie savings. He used vegetable oil, and I am opposed to putting vegetable oil in gravy. Just sounds wrong on so many levels. And I tried butter, but this was already a pretty high calorie breakfast for me. I was trying to save calories where I could. So we're gonna do a 1/4 cup of flour and sprinkle it in here. I'm gonna use a silicone whisk to get that flour just kind of coated with the fat. Give it a second to cook out in the pan here, just to get rid of that raw flour flavor. Would have been better if I could use more fat here because I don't have the added benefit of the fat from the sausage. And if I were in maintenance instead of a cut, I definitely would have added more. But this is where we are. Now that I've given that a second to cook out, we're gonna add 1.5 cups of milk. I'm using basically like Fairlife 2% milk here. And the trick to getting a lump-free gravy is to add a little bit of liquid at a time and stir it until all of that liquid has been absorbed into the flour. Okay, add a little bit more. And once it gets to a more liquidy consistency, then you can just slop in the rest. And this is going to serve as our pizza sauce. The rest. And then we're going to let that come to a simmer. I also need to season it with some salt and pepper. May not need much salt, but it will need a lot of black pepper. In my opinion, sausage gravy should be very peppery. Okay, we'll start there. See where we get. I think I'm also going to add a little bit of garlic powder to this because, well, I add it to pretty much everything. I also think this would be really good with some red pepper flake. You haven't noticed I'm on a heat kick lately. Ever since I had those colds, spice is my friend. And this won't fully thicken until it's come to a boil. If it's too thick, I can add some water to it. If I wasn't concerned about the calorie count, I would just add more milk. I think it's gonna be okay as is. I want it to be a little thicker than I would normally want this kind of gravy, just so that it doesn't drip off the pizza. I need to give this a taste. Definitely need salt. Ooh, other than that, it's tasty. I could still use just a teensy bit more salt. So this is a little thin for me, actually, this sauce. And instead of adding more thickener, I'm just gonna kind of let it bubble here for a little bit to let it thicken up. That looks good. Yep, tastes good too. Perfect. I mean, that's a real yummy low-calorie sausage gravy right there. I mean, as low-calorie as sausage gravy is going to get, let's be real. All right, I think that's good thickness-wise because it's going to thicken up as it sits. I'm going to turn the oven on to 350 and take this off the heat while we put together the pizza. Let's grab this pizza dough from the fridge from yesterday. All good and relaxed. Look how relaxed she is. She had a spa day. Boop. I'm gonna wash my hands. I'm about to manhandle this dough. I mean, technically I'm about to woman handle it, so. I'm not gonna add a bunch of flour, and I'm gonna use the stickiness of the dough to my advantage by using that plastic wrap. Plop this kind of in the middle and put the plastic wrap on top and start rolling it out. And this little silicone mat on the bottom here is gonna work with me to kind of grip that dough on the bottom and keep it from sliding around like it would if it had a bunch of flour under there. We're gonna see if this helps. There you go. Look, I need all of you to stop arguing with me. Surely I'm not the only one that talks to their kitchen appliances. Keep rolling it out until it's the size you want it. This is gonna make 6 servings for me. You can take it out to 8 if you want. Like I said, it is going to be a higher calorie breakfast, but I've been having some problems lately where, because I'm waking up earlier and I'm eating breakfast earlier, by the time my lunchtime comes around at work, I'm starving. So I figured having a little bit heartier of a breakfast might not be a bad idea. Need you to be more square than amoeba, okay? Work with me. And this is going to be a very thin crust. These always are, which I'm okay with. Because anytime you're doing a lower calorie version of something, you know, you've got to have compromises somewhere, like light butter instead of real butter. But you still get pizza, you know? In the end, it's still pizza. And I'm definitely the only one that's going to be eating this pizza in my house, so I'm not super worried about if the dough isn't perfectly, like, even. My husband does not like sausage gravy, cream gravy. He is a brown gravy boy all the way. I definitely prefer cream gravy. That's what I grew up on. He grew up in a half Canadian household, so they did poutine, which, by the way, he introduced me to and is delicious. Ah, my light fell over. So he had us pre-baking the dough, but I don't think I'm going to do that because mine is a lot thinner than that pre-made dough that he had, and I think it'll get overcooked. So we're not going to do that. I think that's as good as we're going to get. I'm not going to be any more OCD than that, which is good for me. Schlep on our gravy sauce, and this thickened up a lot while it sat, so learn from my mistakes. Once it comes together, just let it go. So I'm not really worried about leaving a crust around the edge. I'm just gonna take this pretty much all the way to the edge of the pizza. If that doesn't make your mouth water, doesn't make you drool, doesn't make you say, yeah, I'm excited to eat that, I don't know if we can be friends. Because this has my inner fat kid squealing and clapping. Just saying. Got my puppy over here saying, oh, you know, I like sausage too. All right, so we have our sauce down. This gravy is Helios approved. So we're gonna put on a layer of cheese. This is an entire 8-ounce brick of low moisture, part skim mozzarella. I am not skimping on cheese on a pizza. So instead of just barely having any cheese, we're just gonna use a lower fat cheese and it'll be great. And I grated it myself because it will melt better. I mean, you already have issues with meltability with lower fat cheeses once you do the pre-shredded stuff. I mean, if that's all you can do, like if shredding a block of cheese is what makes the difference between you making or not making this pizza, then buy pre-shredded cheese. I just prefer the texture. Okay, and I'm just gonna save a little to sprinkle over the top. Okay, before I go any further with this, I'm gonna pick this up and put it on my cookie sheet, or my baking sheet. Now I'm gonna sprinkle on my sausage. Probably will resort to using my hands here at some point, but for now, I have the spoon, I will use it. Use my flanges to spread it out a little bit better here. Dancing flanges, dancing flanges. Do we have any Bones fans in the house? All right, and this is where Mindy's OCD goes a little crazy, but we're gonna try not to let it. I did not crisp up my sausage as much as he did because I know it's gonna crisp up even more in the oven, and turkey doesn't have the benefit of all the fat that pork does, so I don't want it to be dry and gross. We're gonna sprinkle the rest of our cheese on top, which will help the sausage stay in place after it's baked. I hope there aren't any Italians watching this. This is an abomination, but it looks like a delicious abomination. Okay, I'm gonna stick this in at 350. I'm gonna check it at like 15 minutes and see how it's doing. I want it to be just slightly like undercooked, like just barely cooked, because I'm gonna be reheating it throughout the week in the mornings, and I don't want it to be burnt when I reheat it. So here we go. I got my pizza. What I did was I just stuck it in the microwave for about like 45 seconds just to get it warm all the way through. And then I put it in the air fryer at 400 degrees for about 5 minutes. Just to crisp up the crust a little bit. It's nice and brown on top. I don't know if you can see it. Yum. Give it a taste. It's like biscuits and gravy on a pizza. That's real tasty. I do wish I had left the gravy a little runnier. It was a little bit claggy, but that was totally my fault. I shouldn't have let it keep reducing because it looked like it was a little thin and I was worried about it running off the pizza. But as it sat, it got quite a bit thicker. I would say you probably only need about like 3 tablespoons of flour. You'll probably even get away with just 2, which would bring down the calorie count a little bit. So I'm gonna make that adjustment in the recipe. I will definitely be making a recipe card for this that if you are a Buy Me a Coffee member, you can download for free. If you are not a Buy Me a Coffee member and you're interested in supporting my content on a monthly basis, you do get free recipe cards. I also send out weekly meal plans. There's a link down in the description for my Buy Me a Coffee page, and I will include a link specifically to this recipe card if you're interested in purchasing it. If a monthly support thing is too much to commit to for you, I totally understand and I get it 1000%. And if you're interested in just buying one of these recipe cards, I'll have it in a 4x6 and an 8.5x11. They're just $2 for people that are not members. So, yum. I have a feeling this is going to keep me full for a long time, which I'm real happy about. Make that. So here lately, lunches have been leftovers because the recipes that I've been making for dinners from the week before, we've had way more food than we could actually eat between my husband and I. And so this week, I actually didn't have any leftovers from the recipes that we ate last week. And I knew I was going to need to try something new. It is still a little bit chilly here in Central Texas. And so I knew when I found this macro-friendly food taco soup recipe that it was definitely going to be on the menu. Macro-friendly food is a recipe subscription service. She has over 800 high protein, low calorie recipes. I talk about them on my channel all the time because I've been subscribed to her for over a year, and honestly, I couldn't live without it at this point. Probably 90% of the meals that I make in our household are from macro-friendly food because I know they're going to be higher protein, they're going to fit within my calorie goals, and they're going to be easy without a lot of extra ingredients. My husband is a very picky eater and he loves pretty much everything that I've ever made from macro-friendly food. I have loved pretty much everything I've ever made from macro-friendly food. So all of that is a huge plus for us. If you're interested in giving it a shot or taking a look at it, there's a link down in the description below, along with a code that will give you 10% off your first month. Or if you're not interested in signing up for the monthly subscription, you can purchase her cookbook and that 10% off discount code works as well. Even without my discount, I buy the 3-month subscription because, as I said, I cannot live without it. And it comes out to like $10 a month. So it's very, very affordable in comparison to what a lot of the recipe subscription services out there charge for recipes that I don't really like as much and call for a lot of special ingredients and things like that. That being said, about the subscription, this particular recipe you can find for free on Elisa's Instagram. I will link it down in the description below. If you're on the fence about whether or not you want to try her subscription service, just take a look at her Instagram and the Macro Friendly Food Instagram accounts. They have tons of free recipes there. That was what I did when I was trying to decide whether I wanted to invest in that on a monthly basis. And once I tried 4 or 5 of her recipes, I was hooked. And I've been a subscriber ever since. I love Mexican flavors. I love spicy food. So taco soup was a no-brainer for me. I knew that it would be easy for me to throw together, put it in portioned bowls, grab one of those bowls out of the fridge when it came time for lunch or to pack my lunch for going to work. And it would just be easy for me to take with the night before. I can throw a couple of toppings into a little container, take it with me, warm it up, throw it all together, and shove it in my face. Let's go throw this together. So the recipe says to cook the ground beef by itself first, and then add onions, and then add garlic, and then add seasoning. No, I'm gonna add the ground beef with the onions and garlic all at the same time while I fling it all over the place. I'm also going to add the seasoning as well because I don't believe in cooking unseasoned meat. Sorry, that was 1 pound of 93% lean ground beef, 1 yellow onion, and the recipe, it's so cute. It calls for 2 teaspoons of garlic. I have probably twice that in here. And then the seasoning is a tablespoon of chili powder, a tablespoon of cumin, half a teaspoon of garlic salt, which I don't have, so I just did the better part of half a teaspoon of garlic. And then I added like maybe a quarter of a teaspoon of salt, and then half a teaspoon of salt, quarter teaspoon of pepper, and paprika. Yeah, half a teaspoon of paprika. So I'm gonna dump that in here so that it can develop in with and season the meat and the onions as we're cooking because delicious. Oops, escaping. And I'm gonna let that cook down until the beef is good and tiny and crumbly and the onions are nice and translucent, probably about 10 minutes or so. So I know you guys are all steamed up. It is what it is. I don't know what to tell you. It's the best angle I got. I'm gonna add some other seasoning. I'm gonna add a little bit of cayenne because I like things spicy. Also, anytime I make a Mexican dish, I always add a little bit of coriander. Coriander is the seed of the cilantro plant. And then I'm also gonna add a little bit of red pepper flake. Season with your heart. I like food spicy. And hopefully this will stop steaming so much in a moment, so that you guys can actually see what I'm doing. Maybe. I think that's good enough for me. It's cooked down good enough. I have 2 cups of water with some low sodium, better than bouillon, the chicken flavor here. Scrape the bits off the bottom of the pan here. Ooh. Oh man, this already smells good. Obviously, you can just use chicken stock. There's a food creator that I follow here on YouTube that said that the Better Than Bouillon had a lot more flavor, and so I decided to try it, and man, it does, and it's way cheaper than buying canned chicken broth. Oh, I should have used that to wash this out. Okay, this is a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. The recipe calls for 2 14-ounce cans, but math says that's the same thing. And then gonna add stuff. 4-ounce can of diced green chilies, not drained, because flavor. 15-ounce can of corn drained, and a 15-ounce can of, I think 15 ounces. I don't know, I already threw the can away. A can of black beans, drained and rinsed. Beans and corn and beans. Tell you what, that doesn't look bad. I think that's it. We're just gonna bring it up to a boil, let it simmer. The recipe is for 6 portions, but it's very low calorie. So I'm actually gonna divide this into 5. I'll just put together a little thing with some Greek yogurt and some shredded low-cal cheese and some of these little tortilla strips, and that'll be lunch for the week next week. And I'm really excited about it. It looks delicious. So things to know, when I was looking at the recipe, I forgot to scroll down. There were more seasonings. She called for red pepper flakes in hers, and she also called for garlic powder, onion powder, and oregano. So I'm gonna add those now. I'm not even gonna bother measuring them because why would I? And I'm gonna let those kind of get to know the soup a little. And a little oregano. Oregano, you can wake it up by kind of rubbing it together between your fingertips. And it smells like pizza. But also a very common ingredient in Mexican dishes. Okay, now I'm gonna let this simmer, and it should be delicious. Editing Mindy here again. Guess who forgot to connect her microphone? So this is me trying to repeat what's going on with my taste test of this soup. Basically, I was just letting you guys know that I did a little bit of Greek yogurt, some shredded low-fat cheese, and some tortilla strips on top just to add like a little crunch texture factor business. And this was really, really good soup. I mean, it's pretty much just a taco in a bowl, right? So really tasty. It was super easy to throw together. It's been fantastic for this week just to kind of, the night before, I put a little bit of Greek yogurt and shredded cheese into a bowl, and I put some of those little tortilla strips in a baggie, and I take them to work with me. I microwave the soup, throw in the sour cream and cheese and the tortilla strips, and eat it, and it's delicious. The little pops of corn are kind of sweet, and then you have the beans and the spiciness, and it's real good. Real good. I also forgot to share with you guys the macros on my breakfast, and here I was sharing them with you along with the macros for my lunch. So for the giant bowl of soup, including the tortilla strips, the 45 grams of Greek yogurt, and the 11 grams of cheese, it was 461 calories, 35 grams of protein, which is 31%, 45 carbs, and 14 grams of fat. And for my breakfast, for the 2 slices of pizza, it was 483 calories, 36 grams of protein, which was 30% of the calories, 39 grams of carbs, and 20 grams of fat. Again, it was a much higher calorie breakfast, but it kept me full for a long time, like all week long. I haven't been hungry for lunch. So just something to know. Fantastic meals. Give them both a shot. Dinner time is always a little bit interesting around here. Around last October, I started working part-time again, and there are days like today where I actually have the full day off, so it's easy for me to kind of prep some things and get things thrown together. And then I have other days where I literally only have a few minutes in the morning, and then I don't get home until 5:30 or 6 o'clock at night, when it's already time for us to be eating. So when I have those kinds of days, having slow cooker recipes really come in clutch for me. I can even prep everything the night before if I want to. So all I have to do is just throw the insert in the slow cooker, turn it on, and then I'm done. My husband is a meat and potatoes man. We love meat around here, especially red meat. I am a little bit anemic, so the red meat is a constant craving for me. So when I found this slow cooker roast beef and gravy recipe on the Macro Friendly Food website, I was like, that's it. That's happening for sure. This particular recipe is only available through the app, but I do have a caramelized roast Elise has on her Instagram for free that I will link down in the description that I've tried as well, and it is very delicious. It just isn't a gravy. It's more of a drier roast. Let's go back to this morning when I threw this in the crock pot. Are you kidding me? I wasn't recording that whole time. Wow. Okay, so I've been talking to myself thinking I was recording this whole time. I'm a silly goose, and I totally forgot that I was supposed to put this roast in the slow cooker first thing this morning. So I'm going to share some tricks with you guys for if you're like me and you ever do something like that. The first thing you're going to want to do is dry off your roasts like really well with a paper towel, and then season the first side of your meat and just kind of rub it in with your fingers. So my first tip, if you have one, is to use a multi-cooker. So this is kind of like a instant pot or something like that. So I can brown, pressure cook, and slow cook all in the same thing. So the nice thing about doing it this way is I can sear it in the same pan, pressure cook it for a little while, and then let it slow cook the rest of the way. But if you don't have a multi-cooker, which is fine, give this a turn. Nice. After you sear it, take it out and cut it into smaller chunks, and it will cook a lot faster. So if you have issues with your slow cooker not cooking your roast all the way through, then try cutting your roast up into smaller chunks because it'll have an easier time cooking it. So this recipe called for a 3-pound roast, and I couldn't find a 3-pound roast, so I have 2 smaller roasts that equal out to about 3 pounds. They actually sell little clips to keep these from rolling around like this, so if that's something that bothers you, I'll link one of those little clips down in the description. So that's good on this one. And I'm just going to take this and put it seasoned side down, and then I'll season the second side while it's in the pot. And then cut this up into big chunks. I'm not trying to make it small by any means. I just want it to be more manageable chunks to cook in the amount of time that I have to actually allow this to cook. That's it. All right, then I'm gonna let that other one sear and get it cut up, and then I'll be back. All right, I don't want this to burn any more than it already has, so I'm gonna add the liquid here, some of the liquid, and scrape up the goodness off the bottom of that pan. I'm actually not a fan of seasoning the meat before you brown it because I feel like the seasonings always get a little burnt. No matter how careful you are, just the thing that happens, but you know, that's what I get for following the directions. Hopefully it won't taste gross. It won't be bitter. Gonna get my roast nuzzled back in here, and because I'm using my multi-pot, I'm actually going to go ahead and give myself a head start because I don't have enough time to do 8 to 10 hours. I'm gonna give myself about 30 minutes of pressure cooking time, and then I'm gonna leave it on low. Again, if you don't have a multi-cooker like this, you could give it like a good 3-hour head start on high, and then turn it down to low to let it go the rest of the way. But breaking it down into these little chunks really helps cut down the cooking time. And also it helps if your roast is like not cut the right way. It helps keep it from being too stringy, and it actually makes it a little bit more tender. I'm gonna let this cook away all day, and then later tonight we'll make some roasted ranch potatoes, and I'll make some sweet and sour cabbage, and that'll be dinner. See you then. So this doesn't look bad at all. This is what you call one of them fork roasts. Like you don't need a knife for it. It just falls apart with a fork. So yeah, cutting it into smaller pieces, given that 30-minute head start with the pressure cook, it is fall apart tender. At the end, I did take the meat out, put my multi-cooker to a simmer setting, and I added some cornstarch and water just to thicken up the gravy a little bit. I did need quite a bit more cornstarch than the recipe called for to get it to something that I would call gravy. And then the potatoes are just russet potatoes that I put a tiny bit of oil and then ranch seasoning, and I added a little bit of beef bouillon powder because I just had like a tiny bit of a ranch seasoning packet left. It needed a little bit more salt just because it was a lot of potatoes. And we're gonna give it a taste. Comfort food to the max. I cooked the potatoes at 475 until they were crispy. I did take them out once and toss them around a little bit. I put parchment paper on the baking sheet so that it wouldn't stick. That's so good. The flavor it's very beefy and just really flavorful. So good. Oh, and then the cabbage, I did this last week and it's now a new favorite. I just took cabbage, a little bit of water, some salt and pepper, and a little bit of garlic powder, a couple splashes of apple cider vinegar, and some brown sugar substitute. It's like a sweet and sour cabbage situation, and it is so good. Definitely a new favorite. For this entire meal, which is a plentiful amount of food, it is 398 calories. So my lowest calorie meal of the day, 40 grams of protein, 40% of the calories, 30 grams of carbs, and 14 grams of fat. This is delicious. I'm going to enjoy the heck out of eating this, and I'll see you guys later for dessert. If you've been a subscriber for a while, you know that I have a sweet tooth. I love sweet things. So an essential part of my meal plan every week is having some sort of dessert planned, usually a high protein dessert, so that I can enjoy a little something sweet at the end of the night and I'm not tempted to eat something that's really not the best for me. This is another one of those where I was scanning through Instagram and I absolutely love the Plant Slant. He cracks me up. He definitely follows my theology about the diet industry and the health industry and all of the fear mongering that has gone on in the diet and health industry lately around diet and all of the things that will kill you and that are terrible for you and all the things you need to avoid. So when I ran across his review of this recipe, this protein chocolate Oreo pudding, I was like, yeah, that looks delicious. So I'm definitely going to throw this together. I've tried doing a protein Oreo pudding before that was Greek yogurt based and it was awful. I am not a fan of plain Greek yogurt in sweet applications. It's been a constant struggle. I have recently found a vanilla Greek yogurt that I love from Oikos, the 000 whatever yogurt that they have. It's amazing. But this one doesn't use any yogurt at all. It's just high protein milk, instant pudding, a little bit of protein powder, done. So it looked super simple and easy to throw together. So hopefully it is. And the macros on it were fantastic. Let's throw this together really quick so that we can have it all set up and ready for tonight when I want something sweet. I'm gonna add my 4 cups of milk, and this is for 4 portions here. This is gonna be a tight fit. I think I'm already regretting my choice of vessel here. I'm gonna mix in the whey protein first, and this is 4 scoops of whey protein. I'm using Clean Simple Eats chocolate brownie batter. If I'm doing anything that requires baking, for the most part, I try to use whey casein blend. But for things like this where I'm not cooking it at all, or if I'm just drinking it, I prefer whey. All right, and then we're adding 2 small packages of sugar-free, fat-free Jello. Liam recommended the chocolate fudge flavor. And so my battery died in the middle of filming that. We added the 2 packages of chocolate fudge instant sugar-free, fat-free Jello. Liam had recommended the chocolate fudge. I always just use the regular chocolate, so I wanted to give it a try. The recipe didn't say what size Jello packets to use, so I guessed at the small one because the instructions for the small Jello said to use 2 cups of milk. And in addition to the Jello, we were also adding the whey protein. So I didn't want to have way too much powder to liquid ratio. We'll see. This is looking a little clumpy. I think I'm gonna leave it. I'm guessing that that will probably get hydrated over time. I'm gonna leave it alone. I did weigh out the final mixture so that I knew how big my serving size would be. And I'm just gonna top it with some Oreo Thins because I love those. You could use vanilla Greek yogurt. You could use Cool Whip if you wanted to, but we're just gonna keep it simple and just do the pudding with the Oreos. I'm gonna put this in the fridge and I will see you tonight. Chocolate pudding taste test time. And I will say, I'm pretty sure I guessed the pudding size wrong because mine is much looser than hers was in the video, but I'm not mad about that. I felt like hers was a little thick, but this is a little... So this is one of those where it's going to be really important that you pick a protein powder that you like the flavor of because it's quite protein powder forward. I've seen another recipe out there where it uses the Fairlife chocolate protein shakes and then just combines that with pudding. And I have a feeling I may like the flavor of that better. I'll have to try that another time. But this is delicious. It is a massive portion. This is half what her recipe was that she was saying was one portion. This still looks like more pudding than what she was eating in her video, so I don't think she intended it to be eaten in one sitting, but she did say that it had 78 grams of protein in it. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine. I feel like that's been a really big trend lately, is like how much protein can we get in something? How much protein can we say there is in something? And so they say how much protein there is in the whole recipe instead of in a serving, which I think is kind of deceptive and dumb. For this amount of pudding, which is a lot, to be honest with you, I feel like you could probably cut that recipe to 3 servings, including the Oreos. 393 calories, 36 grams of protein, which is 36% of the calories, 43 grams of carbs, 9 grams of fat. So I'm gonna eat this. This is very delicious. That means that my total intake for the day is 1,735 calories, 147 grams of protein, which is 33.9% of my total intake, 158 grams of carbs, 57 grams of fat, and I'm real happy with that macro breakdown for the day. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like and let me know what your favorite recipes are that have come in clutch during your weight loss journey. If you've tried macro-friendly food and there's specific recipes that you have really loved, please share those as well. Say hi to me down in the comments. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.
We're on a journey, looking back on the things that we've taken for granted, but feels like we're learning to be better without what's been holding